It has to be about helping other people. Otherwise, it just becomes a train wreck.
Let's pretend you had to have surgery and your surgeon was like, I don't really know. You would not be like, okay, great, I'm going to let this person operate on. You need to have some type of conviction about what they should be doing.
You don't know what's coming up next, so you just kind of have to roll with it, don't you? Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. In today's episode, we're going to sit down with Katie Bodell. And Katie has been a client of ours for years. She's a wonderful person, triathlete. Really just a go-getter individual without a doubt. She came from a service position and has been promoted along the way in a couple of different roles to the point where she's completed now the first couple of years of being a sales manager for the first time, managing others. She has some great insight in terms of how to work with people, how to do one-on-ones, how to deal with circumstances where yesterday you were a peer of someone and today you're actually managing them. And how do you keep those friendships and relationships alive while you're managing somebody that yesterday you were friends with, and that was the only role that you had. So let's welcome Katie Bodell into the Building Your Sales Engine show and look forward to the conversation. Hey, today we're welcoming Katie Bodell, my good friend, long time. How long have we known each other, Katie? Probably, 5 years, 4 years, something along those lines?
I think 4 or 5 years, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And so we're welcoming Katie to our show today, and we're going to talk a little bit about her background in sales and sales management and some lessons learned predominantly from sort of the first year or so in sales management. So Katie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I'm super excited to be here. Very honored that you asked me, and I'm excited. I have some good content, I think, for today.
Excellent. I am not surprised. One thing that I've always been inspired by you is you're always so well prepared, and
Thank you.
You always just seem to have your act together in an amazing way, and that's such a cool thing. Katie, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Let's start there as far as a background. What got you into sales? I'm always interested in that, by the way, of it. Just what brought people to the crazy profession of selling, and a little bit of your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So, personally, I'm originally from Chicago. You may hear my accent under certain words that I say today, but I currently live in Tampa, Florida. I got my start in sales because I really was in client service in some capacity pretty much my whole career. I started as a media buyer. And with that, I started to notice I got really good at the client relationship management portion. And I decided that was going to be a better function for me to be in. So I started to look for roles where I was more focused in that. Then I had Sandler training, and this is not just blowing smoke, Mark. I had Sandler training, and I started to really get excited and use a lot of the Sandler principles I was learning. And I started to get a lot of recognition from other people in the company just saying, hey, I think you would be really good in a sales role. And so kind of started more as sales support, and then eventually just grew into individual contributor and then sales manager. But a lot of it was really just through sales training, I think through you, because, and you probably get this a lot, I initially had kind of an unsavory view of what sales was until I went through Sandler and was like, oh, you don't have to be, sleazy car salesman doing this. You can really have solid integrity and do the right thing for the customer.
Seems like, Katie, so many people really have that as a preconceived notion. And it's almost like there's so many people that could be in sales or be more involved in sales from the service side of things, from the technical side of things. But they do have this resistance, it seems like, of going into sales. When I don't know, if you ask me, sales is about helping people.
Yep.
It's about identifying problems and helping people. And it sounds like, you at some point in your career, you figured that out, that's really what it's about. And it's not some big, scary thing that is to be feared.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually funny you bring that up, because that was a lot of what I thought about for our conversation today, was how a lot of sales skills that I had directly transferred into me being a good manager too. Being able to understand somebody fully, understand what their problems are, what's going really well right now for them, and how you can best serve them and help them in their own individual contributor role.
So with the right mindset, really, whether you're in service or whether you're in sales or whether you're in managing, it really is to me about helping people, identifying problems, helping people, making their lives better in some way, shape, or fashion. Again, regardless of which of those three roles. And so if you have a skill set that's really good at caring about others and helping other people and identifying problems and helping them fix problems, man, it's applicable in all three. I
Mhm.
imagine you've seen that in all three roles now.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I tell a lot of people too when they're thinking about going into some management position and they're like, I don't know if this is going to be good for me or I don't know if I have the right skill set. I always tell them, you do this every single day with your customers and your clients is building rapport, understanding more about them. And a lot of times too, what I always come back to is if you were to survey people and ask them, what what makes a good relationship, whether it's a romantic partnership, a friendship, a boss, a customer, people are pretty much going to say the same things consistently. You're going to say things like trust, communication, they challenged me in the right ways. Maybe they weren't afraid to have hard conversations with me. So things like that, it directly transfers into what makes a good manager as well.
And Katie, what possessed you to go into sales management? Because you were in you went from service to sales and then to sales management. What took you over to the dark side of sales management, and what possessed you to go do that?
You know, I was really lucky. I had an opportunity that just kind of came on my doorstep, and it was a really good intersection of a lot of my experience. I think what led me to really want to be into a management position was just going back to I love helping people. And I think
Mm.
my superpower is being able to work with people and being able to understand people really well. And so I would also say, too, a lot of times I think people get into management for maybe not the right reasons. And so I
Yeah.
would say a good litmus test for all of it is if your motivation is internal, like I love helping people. I love trying to understand what problems are and how I can creatively solve them. Or my strengths just naturally align with empathy, teamwork, vision casting. Those are really good reasons to get into management. It's usually not the best reason to get into management if you're just excited about a pay bump, a title bump. You know, it's really cool to want to be a boss, but it's not cool when you're a bad boss. So there's a lot of bad reasons to get into management, and it's not for everybody either. So I would say a lot of it is you should reflect internally.
Yeah, I think that's because that's a question that gets asked to me from time to time too, Katie, and that's like, is it the right move for me to make in my career as an individual contributor? I'm thinking about making a move into sales management, and one of the questions I ask them is, "What's your motivation? What's your intentions?" And the right answer, by the way, I think you gave the right answer, which is it has to be about helping other people. It has to be about giving and sharing and all of that. Otherwise, it just becomes a train wreck.
Yeah.
It- have you seen people do it for the wrong reasons?
You know, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure I can think of some people. And that's actually why I feel really passionate about the topic of helping new managers is because there unfortunately, if you ask somebody, tell me about your list of managers that you've had. A lot of times people have stories about bad managers and bad leadership. And so I would say, unfortunately, I think it is more common, but the good news is it's a skill set and you can learn it at any point too. And you can always foster and grow your skill set just as you would in sales, as you're constantly honing your skills. You can do it for management too.
But none of it matters if your motivations aren't, if your
Yeah.
intentions, I think that's probably the better word to go use. If your intentions are, it seems to me about like, I'll share a quick story. I had a guy that worked for me. He was actually two levels down for me. He was an individual contributor and he wanted to be in sales management. There was just something off with it the whole time. I met with him, and what I figured out in an interview with him is that his real intentions, wait for this, his real intentions to go into sales management was that he wanted a better title so that he could impress his father-in-law. So help me. And he ended up leaving. He went to another company. He became a sales manager. It was miserable. I mean, we saw it, went back as an individual contributor. But I think, at least what I've seen, and you get your comments on this, is, one of the wrong reasons is certainly, I think, for your own like title. Pay is another one. I think a lot of, I don't know if you saw that, but
Yep.
people think they're going to make a lot more money. It's not always the case.
Yep. I think that is so true. But I also would say too, it's not always bad managers don't happen always because of bad intentions or bad motivation. Sometimes it happens because I think as a society, we're taught to believe that you have a corporate ladder that you're climbing up. So you start as something junior, then you go to something mid-level, senior level, manager. And that for a lot of people, that's just ingrained in their brains of, well, that's just the track I'm supposed to take. But Sheryl Sandberg actually, in her book Lean In, she had a really good quote about how you should aim to have your career be a jungle gym rather than a corporate ladder that you're climbing. So you might say at some point in your career, I don't know that management is right for me, but I am ready to take some kind of step in my career. So maybe it's learning what a new department does or having a senior level position that you don't have any direct reports. But yeah, I would say too, some people just get into it because you just think, well, I don't know, isn't this what I'm supposed to do?
It's a great point. And I think there is an expectation that someone's going to get a promotion, and that promotion means a higher level. But it doesn't always mean that. I don't know. I think a lot of companies, if they really respect somebody who's great at being an individual contributor, that's a great environment to be in, and that it's not expected that you just get a promotion, and that's the route that you have to make. I love the jungle gym analogy too. I've never heard that before. That's great.
Yeah,
It's
that
just
would always
a great way of looking at your career,
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that you should have the ability, like you should also value your passions and your interests in your career just as much as we put value on a fancy title, a great salary. Like you should also just be pursuing what interests you too, because I think your passion and your interest is really what's going to best serve you in the long run. Because if you don't like what you're doing, why are you wasting time?
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
And when you think about, you and I were talking about as we were leading into this conversation, we were talking about the fact that you're relatively early on in managing in the grand scheme of things, right? And so we kind of laughed at the fact that I've been managing salespeople for 28 years, and so if you ask me, what's it like to be a first-time manager? I was only a first-time manager once, and that was 28 years ago. And in your case, it's fresh. You're right on it, and you've had enough experience and enough vantage point that you can look at it and you can see, like, what are some of the what are some of the best practices that you found in that first couple of years of being a first-time manager?
That's a great question. I would say the biggest thing that I always hang my hat on is you have to lead by example. If you don't have an awareness of the things you're doing, the things you're not doing, and also this is a Sandler rule too of deciding not to decide is to decide, the things that you're indecisive on, you're sending a subliminal message to every single person on the team, and you're setting a tone as the leader that the things I do, I'm expecting you to do, whether that's good or bad. The things I don't do, same goes for that. The things I'm wishy-washy on or don't really have a stance on, I'm saying that's okay for you to do that too. So I would say the biggest thing is really to just understand that with being a manager, you have a lot of responsibility with the integrity in your actions and inactions. And so really just always coming back to that. Like if you're really preaching work-life balance and then you go and take a vacation, but you're constantly taking phone calls, you're constantly emailing, you're on Slack still. Well, what are you telling the rest of your team? You're saying you believe in work-life balance, but then you're not really showing that in your actions. So I would just say it's the classic actions speak louder than words, but you really have to lead by example and just know the power you have with your actions.
Yeah, and I think to that point, a lot of times too, it's easy for someone to not recognize that. Like, I mean, you see sometimes people talk about they're trying to get their salespeople to do a better job at time management, and yet they're completely out of control with their own time management. They have no sense of it whatsoever, and so that's one that I see for sure.
Yep.
And another one I've run into too, and I'm curious if you've seen this. Sometimes the nonverbals that I've given off, I know as a manager, and you people are like, "Are you okay? Are you fine?" And it's like that's another thing too that it's easy to miss. I think is in the way you come across with people, the tone that you set as a manager. If you're depressed or you're looking down or all of these things, people are watching your expressions at all times.
Yep, exactly. And I think they're looking to you to understand how they should feel about the role. Like, is the direction of the company strong? It does come down to nonverbals as well.
Yeah. Can you imagine somebody like they're driving a ship, they're a captain of a ship and they're nervous all the time. And they, I mean, that's not a ship you want to be a part of if you're putting your life on the line with somebody. And it looks like they're constantly uncomfortable or they're not confident in what they're doing. Those are just easy things to miss.
I was just going to say, that's funny you said that because I was coaching an individual contributor once and I was watching them on a phone call and going to give them feedback. And they seemed really unsure. The client was saying, "Hey, what do you think we should be doing here?" And the person on the other side on our team was like, "I don't really know." And I was like, "Okay, let's pretend you had to have surgery and your surgeon was like, I don't really know." You would not be like, "Okay, great, I'm going to let this person operate on it." You need to have some type of conviction about what they should be doing.
Yeah, even if you're not sure to some degree, you need to make sure that they share that conviction.
Or say, the best line is you can always say, "You know what, that question deserves a lot of thought and input. Do you mind if I circle back with you so I have a really good answer to that?"
Yeah, you're bringing up a good point too. And that's, as a first-time manager, sometimes you feel like you have to have all the answers to things. And a lot of times you just aren't there.
Right.
And that's just the nature of it. By the way, one thing I've found is reversing in the world of Sandler is just one of the best coaching management tools. So, certainly that could be pulled out where you ask them, "Well, I don't know, what do you think you should be doing in this circumstance?" And flip it around. And that's, to me, some of the best coaching is the coaching comes from the person themselves. They're coaching themselves. And that's what reversing tends to do on that side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had thought about that for this topic too. I think a lot of first-time managers struggle with stepping out of what made them a really good individual contributor is not the same skill set that's going to make you a really good manager. Because you really have to flip your perspective from being about me and about how do I look better, because as a manager you only look good when your team looks good. And so for what you're saying too, being able to coach instead of being just the person with the answers, because what happens then if you're the person with the answers? What happens if you go take a 2-week vacation? The team can't function without the leader then. And a leader's goal really should be the team operates just as well, if not maybe even better than when I'm not there, than when I am there, because you should really be empowering people to find their own answers and figure it out a little bit on their own, or at least self-discover what they think they should be doing.
There's a phrase that we use, at least as a mindset, and that's it. You need to get your people to become self-sufficient.
Yep.
That's the word, at least, that has been tattooed on my mind, is how do you get them to be self-sufficient? And it's one of the issues. And if you want to think through with me too, it's one of the issues that you see with a new manager is that sometimes they'll step in and do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll come in, like here's a great example, Katie, of somebody that was an individual contributor. They're really good at closing sales or closing business or doing presentations. They get asked in by their salesperson that they're managing, and they go in and do the work as opposed to teaching and coaching someone how to go do the work. So, I don't know if you any thoughts about that, or if you've run into that or seen it.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I've used the metaphor too that if you have a kid and you're teaching them how to ride the bike, you don't just sit on the bike and be like, "Watch me do it." at some point you have to say, you need to get on the bike. You need to fall off the bike. Learn that, okay, you're going to be okay if you fall off and scrape your knee. You have to get back on it though. And you need to learn how to ride the bike on your own. It's not going to do you any good to just consistently watch me ride a bike. You don't learn that way.
That's a great analogy, by the way, or metaphor. I always get that mixed up, but that's a great metaphor. You have to put them on the bike. They have to go do it. You can't do it for them.
Yep. It's almost like a tough love kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's I think the biggest failing of managers is, especially when they take their first management job, they feel like they need to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is when they're doing the work, they're taking away the opportunity for the seller to ride the bike, in the metaphor. And as a result of that, they're preventing that person from becoming self-sufficient at the cost of the manager's ego.
Yep.
That's what they get out of it.
That's exactly right. And that really goes back to the I versus we mentality, because when you're an individual contributor, you're only thinking about, how do I hit my number? How do I look good in front of the team? But as a manager, you really have to flip that to, how do I make the people on my team look really good and have them work together? I just remembered what I was thinking about. And this is a Sandler prospecting tool, is when you're in the initial stages of talking to somebody and asking them, well, tell me about your business. What's going on? What are some of the challenges? How can my business help you? A really good tool that you can use is, well, how long has the problem been going on? And what have you done to try to solve it? And that works all the time with your direct reports too. So if they come to you and they say, I'm dealing with this thing, ask them those questions, start to dig in a little bit. And oftentimes their own solution kind of can appear from that.
Yeah, they really, I mean, the best coach should be the salesperson themselves, coaching themselves. And again, that's part of being self-sufficient. And those questions are right out of the pain funnel. Those are great questions for a manager to ask.
Yep.
The tell me more. How long has this been a problem? What have you done about it? Any of that work? They're great self-discovery questions that a manager can use. I got to ask you this, Katie. One of the things that I get asked all the time that gets brought up is, as a first-time manager, what ends up happening is, yesterday we were peers with someone. Mm-hmm. Today, we're not only friends. Yesterday we were friends with them. Now we're friends and we're their manager. And you just don't drop the friendship role of people that you're colleagues with when you get promoted, and it's such an awkward, I remember going through that myself as well. Anything that you saw that you did, either right or wrong, when you went through that transition of being a friend one day and their manager and friend the next?
That I'm so happy you asked me that, because that is probably the biggest heartburn that new managers have. Is I just feel so awkward talking to I'm so excited for my new role, but I also feel incredibly awkward talking to people that I was working alongside with yesterday, or maybe you have a friendship with, and now the dynamic of our relationship has changed because I got promoted. So I would say, really, to have your first meeting with them be really intentional about you getting to understand them, because probably when you're an individual contributor, you weren't noticing maybe what some of their motivation was. You weren't noticing maybe some of their challenges for whatever reason. And so I would say, in your first one-on-one with them, and I would make it probably an hour, just so that you have enough time to cover everything. And if you don't use all the time, that's fine. But start to ask them things about, hey, what is your motivation right now? What are some roadblocks that you have in your role? Whether it's a mindset that you're dealing with or it's resources that you don't have. Make the goal of the meeting to just understand them more and how they tick and how they operate, because that's going to help you better manage them. And I had a friend once who told me that she asked her mom later in life, like, hey, how come, and her sister are both adults now, but she was like, hey, how come you treated her a little differently than you treated me? And her mom said, well, you were two totally different people. If I parented you the exact same ways, it wouldn't have been, neither one of you needed what the other one needed from me. And it's the same principle as a manager, is like, you sometimes don't always coach and manage somebody exactly the same way. And so that's why I say, in the beginning portion of you having a one-on-one with them, you really need to understand what's their motivation and what are some of their setbacks.
And you said a couple of things I think that are really important, and I never thought about this. And that's one is that it's a longer meeting. The first one is a longer meeting. It's not a typical 20 or 30-minute one-on-one. It's got to be more intentional. And the other thing too and is that really that shouldn't be over lunch. It shouldn't be in an informal environment. You almost need to set the tone that you're going to be in the office. You're going to be alongside somebody. I think you'd have to be careful about like going to lunch with somebody and having that conversation, because then you're continuing the thread of the friendship, which you want to keep. You don't want to snip that thread, but at the same time, you also need to set another tone with the person such that we have a new role.
Yep, absolutely. And I think too, and this is a Sandler rule, if you feel it, say it. And I have coached so many people to do that when they're like, I feel so weird talking to Joe, who was my friend yesterday, and now I'm his manager. And I always just say, if you feel it, say it. That's okay. I think it's probably normal. And odds are they probably feel a little funny about it too. So just address the elephant in the room and just say, I know we've been so transparent with each other because we've had a friendship, and I know dynamics are changing a little bit. I don't want that to change just because I'm your manager. Obviously, some things may have to change with whatever, but I don't want that part to change of our relationship.
Yeah, we can still be friends, and I manage, I have this new role.
Yep.
And so it's almost like, for those who are familiar with Sandler IR theory or identity role, you're calling out the roles.
Yep.
I know in the past we've been friends. I want to remain friends with you, but now we have this new role too. So if you, as you said, if you feel it, say it, deal with the elephant in the room. They're probably feeling the same way. Once you have that one conversation, it generally gets better right away.
Yep.
And as a lot of things, this too shall pass. It's like you kind of settle in. But the first, I don't know, how long did it take you? 30 days, 90 days, 100 days, 6 months? How long did it take to kind of settle into it?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, which may be cliche, is you're always learning, though. So I don't know that there's ever a point where you're like, I know everything, I got this. And that's for anything in life. But I would say maybe 30 days to really sink your feet into, okay, I have to set the tone of I am the new manager. But I would also say, too, another really good question to ask in that first one-on-one that you have with your new direct reports is ask them, and if you've both been at the same company for a while, maybe don't share names, but say, who have been some of your favorite managers, who have been some of your least favorite managers, and tell me why you said that, because you're going to start to really understand things that are important to them. And so if they share things like, so-and-so is my favorite manager, and they were so kind to me. They were always just praising what I was doing, pointing out what I was doing right, bringing my names into rooms that I wasn't in. You start to realize, okay, sincere praise and appreciation is going to go a really long way with that person versus somebody who says, man, my manager rolled up their sleeves. They were in the trenches with me, helping me close deals or helping me understand how I could close my gap a little bit more. You might realize, okay, that person is going to want me to do that a little bit more than somebody else who might have that down pat a little bit.
That's a great question to ask. I love that question. Because and you brought this up earlier, is that everybody has to be treated a little bit differently. And by the way, some cases a lot differently.
Yeah.
If you're managing somebody with 25 years worth of experience in the industry and somebody with, 2.5 months worth of experience in the industry, you got to treat those people very differently on that side of things. That's a wonderful question. And by the way, I think it's an easy thing to miss as a new manager. So I'll just throw this out is keep notes, keep notes of each individual on that person. What is it that they're after? What are their personal ambitions? What are they saving for a house? Are they, going to get married soon? All of those things, keep those personal notes so that you have that personal connection with people and what drives them as well. That's cool. That's great stuff. It's a great perspective because, again, it's been 28 years since I was at that spot where I was a first-time manager. But time passes, and it will for you too.
Yeah.
But you're in a great spot, and really have done a great job, no doubt. Without a doubt. I got to ask you this, Katie. I'm going to give you a big stroke here. Of all of the managers, you are one of the very, very best that I deal with that at reinforcing principles and concepts, whether it's Sandler or anything else. You do a great job of training and doing all kinds of things with the team to help the team get better. And I've met a lot of your team, and I think they really respect you a lot for the fact that you care about their development. What are some of the best things, or some of the things that you found that really help you, whether it's reinforcing Sandler or some other, process? You're trying to change people's behaviors. What are some of the things that you found that work well to change behaviors of salespeople, new manager or not?
Well, first off, thank you. That was a humongous compliment from you, so I really appreciate that. I mean, I would say a lot of the I think the reinforcement of Sandler specifically was kind of two-pronged for me. I want to make this really fun for people. So there were some times where I would try to gamify something, or I would teach, like each week I would have a Sandler principle or a Sandler rule that we would talk about in our one-on-one. And I would just share with them, here's what the principle says, here's an example, or I heard somebody on the team use this. And then I would say, okay, guys, go out in the wild, whoever can come back and say that you did that principle this week, and make it organic. Don't be weird about it. Don't try to insert it where it should be inserted. You get a $5 Starbucks gift card. And you wouldn't believe how excited people would get about that. And I think there is a little bit of competition involved too. But people loved that kind of stuff. So I would always be thinking about, how do I make this fun, engaging, where people want to show up to work and want to implement the things that they're learning. And then the other thing too, I think, is just having a responsibility to the company and a respect that they're investing in us. And so by no means am I going to just take that gift and let you do all the hard work, because I know we're only with you for, what was it? Maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours a month. And that is awesome. But that means that there's a lot more hours that we're not with you. And so always having that, I think, respect and integrity. I think maybe stewardship is the right word. Just stewarding that.
Yeah, you've done a great job. And I think a lot of people can learn from what you've done and to your point, not squandering an investment, developing the people, causing reinforcement, using it in the wild, so to speak. It's sort of when they're out there doing what they're needing to do, then for sure looking for opportunities to use it that's organic, and then bringing it back, making it fun. I think that's great stuff. It's great stuff. I think we can all learn a lot from you in that area, and maybe we even have you back and we can spend a whole session just talking about that one thing, because you've really done a phenomenal job in terms of getting sort of the culture and the mindset instilled in the people that work for you. And I think a lot of it has to do with your intentions. You really want to see people grow and develop.
Yeah.
And I guess with that, Katie, we'll wrap up a little bit, but it has, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, it has been so much fun watching your career and watching what's happened through, the last number of years with you. And it's fun to watch people grow. It really is. And it's probably one of the best things about being a manager, especially a first-time manager, is you get to watch people grow. And it's been a blast watching your development and growth and what you're doing and what you're on your way to go do too. So I just wanted to pass that along to you.
Thank you. That really means a ton. You know this. You've been a huge influence in my career. And I'm so thankful that I got Sandler training. I sincerely mean that. It has changed so much of my perception on what is capable for my career and how I can do it with integrity and purpose. And so thank you also, Mark. And it's been awesome to be here. And anytime you want me on the podcast, Mark, you just call. I'm ready.
Excellent. We'll have you back for sure, because I think there's a whole lot more things that we could cover and we can extract out of your mind that I know you're doing such a great job of. So thank you for taking the time. Super appreciate it. And great insights. I took a ton of notes. Can't wait to use them myself.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mark. It's been so much fun.
Thanks. We'll see you soon.
All right. Awesome. Bye.
Bye. So, hey, I hope you've gotten a ton of value out of this episode. By far, it's our purpose to help help people make money and have fun and have a good time. We're here to help improve your life, to help you make it easier to go sell or to manage your sales team, and ultimately to go build your own sales engine. Don't miss an episode. Best way to go do that is to make sure that you jump out to buildingyoursalesengine.com/follow, where you can link up to all of our latest episodes. For more information about this episode, go to buildingyoursalesengine.com, where you can download show notes, transcripts, and other information, including handouts and snapshots of this and other episodes. If you'd like to connect with us to talk about how we can help you build your sales engine, and you are either located in the state of Georgia or are referred to us by one of our clients or affiliated by one of our clients, please reach out to us at buildingyoursalesengine.com, where you can click there to book some time with us. We can find out how we can be of help with one another. If you're not in either of those two circumstances, please reach out to Sandler.com, where you can find a Sandler office near you. Be well.